The sun dipped low over the Nevada desert, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink, like a canvas left to dry in the heat. Elise Harrington gripped the steering wheel of her sleek, custom-built electric sports car, its once proud hum now a pitiful sputter. The dashboard blinked a warning: battery failure. She was miles from anywhere, her phone as useless as a paperweight with no signal. Elise, billionaire heiress and tech prodigy at 26, wasn't accustomed to being stranded. Her life was a meticulously coded algorithm: private jets to Paris, penthouse suites in Singapore, a company valued as $12 billion. Yet here she was, alone on a desolate highway, her designer heels pinching her feet and her silk dress clinging awkwardly to her skin in the dry heat. She popped the hood, stared at the tangle of wires and circuits, and let out a frustrated sigh. She'd built an empire from scratch, revolutionized AI-driven logistics, but cars? They were a black box she'd never cracked. She kicked the tire, muttering under her breath, when a low rumble broke the silence. A beat-up pickup truck, more rust than paint, rolled up beside her. The driver leaned out, his face half hidden under a faded baseball cap. "Need help?" His voice was warm, rough around the edges, and strangely familiar, like a song she hadn't heard since high school. Elise squinted, her heart doing an unexpected flip. "Jake?" she asked, disbelief threading through her tone. Jake Larson, the quiet kid from her senior year, the one who'd once fixed the school's ancient projector with a paperclip and a prayer. He grinned, his hazel eyes crinkling at the corners, and pushed his cap back. "Elise Harrington, never thought I'd see you out here, stranded like a regular mortal." Jake hopped out, a dented toolbox swinging in his hand, and strode toward her car. He wore a faded flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms tanned from working under the sun. Elise watched, arms crossed, as he leaned under the hood with the ease of someone who belonged there. She hadn't thought of Jake in years. Back in high school, she'd been the golden girl of valedictorian, debate team star, destined for Stanford and beyond. Jake had been the opposite, the kid who skipped prom to rebuild a carburetor in shop class, always tinkering, never chasing the spotlight. They'd barely spoken then, orbiting different worlds. Yet here he was, the only soul on this empty road, and somehow, it didn't feel like chance. "What happened to you after graduation?" she asked, leaning against the car to steady herself. The desert wind tugged at her hair, and she brushed it back, suddenly self-conscious. Jake didn't look up, his hands moving deftly over the car's innards. "Joined the army," he said. "Mechanic training, mostly. Fixed Humvees in places hotter than this. Now I run a little garage in town, keep things simple." He paused, wiping sweat from his brow with a rag. "You, though? I see your name everywhere. Billboards, magazines, that tech conference on TV." "Billionaire by what? 25, 26, she corrected, a smile tugging at her lips despite herself. "Not as glamorous as it looks." The words slipped out, raw and unfiltered, surprising her. She didn't talk about the pressure of the board meetings where every decision felt like a tightrope walk, the paparazzi who turned her rare nights out into headlines, the loneliness that crept in when the world saw only her success. Jake glanced at her, his gaze steady, like he saw through the polished veneer she wore like armor. "Looks pretty glamorous from here," he said, but his tone was kind, not mocking. He tightened the wire, checked the connection, and slammed the hood shut. "Try it now." Elise slid into the driver's seat, turned the key, and the car purred to life, smooth as ever. "Loose connection," Jake said, wiping his hands on the rag. "You're good to go." She stepped out, her heels crunching on the gravel shoulder. "You're a miracle worker," she said, half laughing. "Can a broken bar buy you coffee or something?" "As a thank you." Jake raised an eyebrow, leaning against his truck, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. "You don't owe me, Elise, but if you're offering, there's a diner a few miles up. Best pie in the county." She laughed, the sound foreign to her own ears. "Deal," she said, surprising herself again. The diner was a time capsule, all chrome edges and faded neon, smelling of coffee and fried onions. A jukebox in the corner played a scratchy rendition of an old country song. Elise slid into a cracked vinyl booth across from Jake, her silk dress catching slightly on the seat. The waitress, a woman with a perm and a name tag reading Doris, poured them coffee without a word and shuffled off. Jake leaned back, his hands wrapped around his mug, his cap now resting on the table. "So, what's it like?" he asked, his voice low, curious. "Being you?" Elise stirred her coffee, the question hitting harder than she expected. "It's a broken bar a lot," she said finally. "Everyone expects perfection. Investors, employees, the media. One wrong move, and it's headlines for a week. No room for mistakes." She glanced at him, expecting pity or judgment, but found only quiet attention. "What about you?" she countered, deflecting. "Happy fixing cars in the middle of nowhere?" Jake chuckled, a sound that warmed the air between them. "It's honest work. I like solving problems, seeing something broken come back to life. Cars, tractors, even the occasional lawnmower, doesn't matter. It's real." He paused, his eyes meeting hers. "Kinda like this moment, I guess." Elise's cheeks warmed, and she looked down at her coffee, suddenly aware of the years that separated Thema and the strange way they seemed to dissolve in this greasy-spoon diner. They talked for hours, the conversation flowing like the coffee Doris kept refilling. Elise told him about Stanford, the sleepless nights coding her first app, the venture capitalists who'd laughed her out of boardrooms until she proved them wrong. Jake shared stories of dusty bases in Afghanistan, where he'd fixed engines under fire, and the quiet life he'd built since coming home. He didn't flinch at her wealth or fame, didn't treat her like a headline. To him, she wasn't Elise Harrington, tech titan. She was just Elise, the girl who'd once tripped over her own feet in gym class and laughed it off. "You ever miss it?" he asked as the jukebox switched to a slow ballad. "The normal stuff. Friends, late nights, not having the world watching your every move." Elise traced the rim of her mug, the question stirring something she'd buried deep. "Sometimes," she admitted, "I have people around me all the time, assistants, advisors, but it's not the same. They're paid to care." The confession hung between them, heavy and true. Jake nodded, like he understood more than she'd said. "Sounds lonely," he said simply, and the word landed like a stone in her chest. Doris dropped off 2 slices of cherry pie, the crust golden and flaky. "On the house," she said with a wink at Jake, who grinned back. Elise took a bite, the tart sweetness a small revelation. "You weren't kidding about the pie," she said, and Jake laughed, a sound that made her want to stay in this booth forever. They ate in companionable silence for a while, the weight of the world outside fading with each bite. As the night deepened, the diner emptied, leaving just them and the hum of the neon sign. Jake stretched, his flannel shirt pulling tight across his shoulders. "Guess you've got places to be," he said, but there was a question in his voice. Elise glanced at her watch at 2:00 and realized she didn't want to leave. "Not yet." "Not really," she said. "I was headed to a conference in Vegas, but a broken bar, it can wait." Jake raised an eyebrow, a slow smile spreading. "Elise Harrington, playing hooky. Never thought I'd see the day." They stepped outside, the desert air cool and sharp, stars blazing overhead like a million tiny promises. Jake walked her to her car, his boots crunching on the gravel lot. "You ever get tired of it?" he asked, his voice softer now. "The whole Billionaire thing?" Elise stopped, her heels unsteady on the uneven ground. "All the time," she admitted, the truth spilling out like water from a cracked dam. "I built this life because I thought it would mean something. Freedom, maybe. But it's just a broken bar, more chains." She looked at him, his face half lit by the diner's glow, and felt a pull she couldn't name. Jake nodded, his hands in his pockets. "If you ever want to slow down, you know where to find me. Rusty trucks and all." He tipped his cap, a half-smile playing on his lips, and climbed into his pickup. Elise watched him drive off, the taillights fading into the dark. She slid into her car, the engine humming smoothly now, fixed by a boy who'd once been a stranger and now felt like a tether to something real. As she pulled onto the highway, the lights of Vegas glowing faintly in the distance, Elise's phone buzzed, a reminder of her keynote speech tomorrow. She ignored it. For the first time in years, the weight of her world felt lighter, like a program running smoothly after a bug fix. She didn't know if she'd see Jake again, but the possibility lingered, warm and bright as the desert stars. Maybe, Just maybe, she'd take the exit to his little garage next time. Maybe she'd learn what that meant to slow down,